So in the last chapter, we tackled the just kind of getting used to the interface, and don't worry too much if you're still a little bit nervous or scared of the interface itself. All you should be really worried about is that that you understand that how to pan and rotate by holding Alt and the left mouse button to rotate, by holding Alt again and middle mouse button to pan. If you scroll the wheel in and out, not holding Alt, you can zoom in and out. If you hold Alt and you click the left mouse button and the wheel, you can incrementally zoom. So, and then you just understand that you can go to create polygon primitives and create a bunch of different primitives, for a pyramid, for example, we didn't cover. Or, and then the other thing is that you can actually cut or create your own edges by going to Edit Mesh and using just the Insert Edge Loop tool or the Interactive Split tool. And you can see here by just left clicking I can add a bunch of edges. Alright, or Edit Mesh, Interactive Split tool, I can just click across the surface, and when I'm happy with the number of cuts I got, I just hit enter. Something like that. Alright, so let's go ahead and go to File, New, and do not save it. One other thing I want to kind of cover is it's sort of easier to model something by having up the 4-view mode, which is this right here. So if you left click here, you can see it brings up 4 different views. And it's kind of hard to see in this video, but down at the bottom of each one it says top, front, side, and perspective. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually create a folder, and we're going to set our project to that folder so that every time Maya, every time we load up our scene, Maya knows to sort of create, or knows where to find the imagery. Otherwise, if we don't use this set project feature, which you're going to learn about in 1 second, every time you load up your models, it's not going to load up with any textures, or every time you load up an image plane. So what I'm going to do in the front view, I'm just going to find my front view, I'm going to hit spacebar there to zoom in on just the front, and I'm going to go to create polygon primitives, and I'm just going to create a plane, and I'm just going to drag out a plane. So I'm just left clicking, I'm not worried about the size of my plane, and because what we're going to do is we're actually going to edit the scale of our plane in about a second. So you can see here, if I hit 4, let's select that again. I'm sorry, 5, you can see the shaded view. Now, if your grid is sort of in your way and you don't like it, like I get really annoyed by the grid in some views, for example, in the front view, I just go to Show and I go down to Grid and I uncheck that. Okay, so let's make sure we're in object mode. So I have my object selected, and I'm going to pause the video and open Photoshop right now, and I'm going to load up my image plane. So then next time we return, you'll see Photoshop open, and you should go ahead and open Photoshop as well. Okay, so this is the table we're going to model in this tutorial. I got it from File. I went and hit Open, and on the desktop of my computer, I have a folder called Table, and inside that folder I have one called Ref. So I want you right now to pause the video, and I want you to make a folder on the desktop called Table. I want you to make a second folder inside there called REF, and then within that ref folder I want you to place this image I'm going to give you. Okay, and so that's here. Let's go back in there. Alright, so there's the ref folder. Alright, so the reason why we're taking this into Photoshop is whenever you model a character for a video game or film or whatever, you need the dimensions of the concept art, and this is the concept we're doing. And we're going to apply this image to our plane inside of Photoshop, or inside of Maya. So let's go ahead and go to Image, Size, and you can see my width is 9.2, so I'm just going to highlight that and hit Control C. I'm going to jump back into Maya 2012, and under the now you can see, if you're not sure about what your scale is, you can see X is this way. So if we go into Scale X and I hit Control V and I just paste that number in, you can see that it matched that width of 9.22. Alright, let's jump back into Photoshop. I'm going to highlight this, and then you can even right click and go to copy or hit Control C. And let's jump back in, and then you can see my height, which is the y-axis. I'm just going to paste that other number in and hit enter. And now the dimensions of my plane are the exact same dimensions as my table. Alright, now what we're going to do is apply that image of our table onto this plane. Alright, I'm going to introduce you to something new called the Hypershade. And what the Hypershade is it controls all of our textures. So let's just go up to Window, Rendering Editors, and Hypershade. Now, I'm also going to introduce you to something pretty cool, and it's how to add shortcuts to our table here. So say I'm fiddling around in my Hypershade and I close it, and I'm like, oh, you know what, I need to get my Hypershade again. And so instead of having to constantly go up here, we can create our own custom buttons up here. So I'm going to hold Control and Shift at the same time, and with this window, Render Editors window open, I can just click on Hypershade, and you can see it adds a button here. So let's go ahead and click Hypershade. And let's give that a second to load up. And now, I'm not going to explain all of this stuff until we get into the materials section, but just understand that there's different tools like Anthroposcopic, which is great for plastics. What we want right now is just a flat Lambert, which has little or no speck on it or shininess, so that because we don't want our image that we're rendering, our image that our table is coming from, to be shiny. So let's just go ahead and left click on Lambert, and what happens is in the work area you can see that this Lambert 2 appears, this Lambert 2 sphere. So what we want to do is apply this to our plane. Now, one thing we want to make sure as well is that our Lambert 2 isn't named Lambert 2, but it's actually called reference, or REF, so that we know it's for our table. So let's click on our name here, and let's just name that REF, so we know it's reference, table, and hit enter. And you can see that it renamed it here, and it renamed it up here. So if we ever need to find it again, we know it's up here. So let's make sure this is open, or this is on. And then we're going to just select our plane again, and we know it's selected because it has this green area around it. And then we're going to hold down the right mouse button and just do Assign Material to Selection. And so now with our plane, our plane actually has this material on it. Now what we're going to do next is we're going to actually grab that image and apply it to our plane. So let's double click our sphere, and you can see here that this material attribute editor window opens. You don't worry about transparency or any of this other junk. We only care about this very first option, which is color. And what it's going to do is make the color of our plane the same color as our table. So let's click on this first checkerboard here, and that creates this other thing, which is create render nodes. Don't worry about any of this stuff. All we're concerned about is that we want to get a file, and then you should get this file 1, which is image name. Now say you click off and you're like, oh no, I lost it, what should I do? Well, inside of our Hypershade we can actually move these nodes around, and in here it acts the same way as in the window. So I can zoom out by rolling my wheel. I can move this off. If I just click on file 1 in here, we get back to where our image is. Now say you lose this all together, right? So say you close this even by accident, and you're like, oh no, I didn't apply. If you open up your Hypershade, because we named it properly earlier, our nodes, let's give that a second pop up, you can see reference table. If I left click and I drag, or I'm sorry, middle mouse click and I drag this into my work area, I can go back to working on my reference area. So I can double click that again to bring it up on the side, go into color, image name, click on the folder, and you can see here that it didn't immediately go to the folder that has my table in it. So we have to set our project. So let's close this, let's close our Hypershade. Let's go to File, Set Project, and I'm going to go to the desktop. There's my table folder. I'm going to double click on that, and I'm just going to click Set. And then, and that's fine. Let's just hit Set, Create Default Workspace is fine if you get that window. Alright, let's try that again. So let's open our Hypershade. And let's middle mouse and drag our reference table into the work area. Double click it, and because we applied the material to it earlier, it's still going to be there. Let's go to Color, File, and let's go to the desktop, Table, Reference, and let's open that up. Okay. Now we don't see it in the view because we have to actually go into new mode, because 5 is shaded mode and 6 is textured mode. So it's kind of, I'm holding Alt and middle mouse clicking to sort of move this over. And what I'm going to do is I want to get my image so that it fits perfectly on this plane. So what I'm going to do is in the next tutorial is we're going to do something called our UV texture editor. So at the end of this tutorial, you should have a texture node, you should have an image plane, and it should be created in our front view.